Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. My first ever Warhammer 40,000 army was Necrons. I started collecting this sucker, in like 2011? It has been a hot minute, but my Necrons have kind of languished for most of my time playing Warhammer 40,000 because I was the Necron guy. I had a massive Necron army full of warriors and immortals and the Necron wraiths, which have always been like upsettingly good in the game. But then when 8th edition came around and a whole bunch of brand new Necron stuff came out, I was kind of stuck because the new stuff was good and vehicles were good. And I didn't have any of the new stuff and I didn't have any vehicles. And so I was thinking, well, do I buy the new Necron stuff? But then I almost didn't want to do that because then I wouldn't be playing with my models and my collection, the thing that made me get into Warhammer 40,000. So my Necron army just kind of sat around for multiple editions of Warhammer 40,000. But recently, I didn't dust off the Necrons, but I played them in Tabletop Simulator just to give them a try. I have a Necron army. I should play a Necron army. And I have discovered that Games Workshop has made my Necron collection good again. They made a detachment specifically for me and my 2015 Necron army, Awaken Dynasty. It is perfection. One weird thing about me and my Necrons is I like Necrons. I don't like Catan. Catan have always been good. They've been really, really good lately. In fact, if you want like a top tier tournament topping Necron army, you take some Catan. But Catan aren't Necrons. The closest I want to get to Catan is Settlers of Catan, which is a really, really fun game. And that super satisfies my itch of wanting Catan in my army. I don't like them. I want to bring the boys. And the boys are really, really good. And Awakened Dynasty specifically makes Necron units really, really good. Any Necron unit that is led by a character gets +1 to their hit rolls. That's really, really powerful, especially because Necrons, naturally, for most of the army, hit on 3s. So that means a lot of this army is hitting on 2s. And the things that aren't hitting on 2s are hitting on 3s, like the Wraiths and the regular Necron warriors. All of a sudden, the success rate of this army goes up 16% across the board. And I have enough Necron characters to pull this off. With using almost only models from my collection, I was able to write a list, and it was glorious on the tabletop. One thing that I'm really excited about in 10th edition is that Necron Immortals, specifically Tesla Immortals, are good again. Arguably good for the first time because Tesla has never been the thing. I built all 20 of my Necron Immortals with the Tesla carbines, and Tesla has always been the slot machine of Necron war gear. The gas flare is the sure thing. It's got some AP, it's got a little extra strength. It's just a better weapon overall. It is mathematically superior. But the Tesla is a lightning gun, and it has a chance of popping off. In 10th edition, Tesla has sustained hits 2. Ooh, sustained hits 2. That means every roll of a 6 is 3 successful hits. A 10 brick of Immortals led by a Plasmancer is +1 to their hit, so they're hitting on 2s. With the stratagem, I can make re-rolling hits so I can fish for those 6s. So 20 Tesla Immortal shots maths out to about 32 successful hits. And then after the wound roll, which Tesla is strength 5, so it's probably gonna be 3 ups to wound against Marine equivalents, that is like 22 successful wounds. Looking your opponent in the eye and saying, take 22 saving throws. That's kind of good almost against anything because there's no AP, there's no shenanigans, it's just 22 armor saves. Against Space Marines, that's like 4 dead Marines. Against a tank, that's 4 wounds even if they're saving on a 2 up. They can't do nothing about it. They can't get a cover save because cover can't give you better than a 3. You can't do Armor of Contempt because you can't make you don't want to make your saving throw better because you're already using your armor save. There's nothing you can do. My Tesla Immortals are just gonna shoot ya, and it's gonna be great. I love Tesla Immortals. I have 20 of them in my collection. Actually, the first Warhammer miniature I ever bought was a squad of Death Marks. I don't know where they are. I don't know what happened to them. If I had to guess, I turned those sniper guys back into Immortals to finish off my 2 10-man blocks. Like, the only negative I can say about Immortals is they have 1 wound, which is really, really low. They're very squishy, but they don't need to be that squishy when everything else is so tanky. And speaking of tanky, Necron reanimation protocols has always been changed around every single edition, but this edition, it's pretty darn generous. Every single Necron unit at the top of the turn in the command phase gets to resurrect D3 either points or models, and it spills over. So if I have, 2 dead guys and 1 guy alive on 1, I can bring back 2 dead guys and give back that wound. If I have something like a big brick of Locust heavy destroyers who have 3 wounds apiece, and I use my res orb for D6 resurrection, and I roll a 4, that means 1 guy is coming back at full strength and 1 guy is coming back with 1 wound remaining. It's really, really generous. In my detachment, the Awakened Dynasty, I can spend a CP to do a resurrect whenever I want, and that is a D3 plus 1. And because I'm taking characters on everything, and pretty much most characters have a resurrection orb, I can once per game resurrect for D6 instead of D3. Like, I was in my game against Sean, I was getting a lot of Necrons back. I brought a big blob of 10 warriors with a Necron Lord attached, and literally, I threw them up onto the midfield objective in the middle, and they were getting absolutely blasted by Sean's army. I just kept resurrecting. They went from like 20 down to 14, back up to 16, back down to like 13, back up to like 16. And then he like really put everything into him and brought him down to 6. And then I resurrected back up to 10. Like, it was beautiful. Necrons, they're Chumbawamba. They get knocked down, but they get up again. You can never keep them down. In that game, I have thoroughly resurrected my love of Necrons because my boys were strong. One unit that I love is the Necron Wraiths. Necron Wraiths have always been absolutely amazing. In 6th, and I believe in 7th edition, they had a 3-up invulnerable save, which is unfair. Now it's a 4-up invulnerable save, which is still kinda unfair. These guys are really, really good. They require large volumes of fire to take them out. These guys charged Magnus the Red, and Magnus, I think he killed like 1 or 2. And by the way, they have reanimation protocols too, so they also get to come back to life. These guys, I did the math on these suckers. They have the Vicious Claws or the Whip Coils, and the Vicious Claws, I think, are like 3 attacks apiece, and then the Whip Coils are 6 attacks apiece. And so you can be throwing 24 punches or 48 punches. Mathematically, depending on the target, but against most things that you would, you'd want to throw your Wraiths against something in your opponent's army that's good, you're gonna do almost exactly the same amount of damage, which is 8 to 10 damage. Like, the Wraiths are really, really good. And my army is essentially a bunch of squads of dudes, a 20 brick of Necron warriors, 2 10-man bricks of immortals, but a bunch of big, tough, punchy units. A full squad of 6 Scorpek destroyers. These guys are 3 wounds apiece, it's toughness 6, really big, really chonky, really, really good in close combat, especially led by a Scorpek destroyer lord who towers over these already really, really tall guys. These guys can kill a Rogaldorn tank in 1 round of combat with just a little tiny bit of luck. And they have reanimation protocols too, so they can also be brought back to life. And if the entire squad gets wiped out, including the Scorpek Destroyer Lord, Awakened Dynasty has a stratagem for that. For 1 CP, if my Scorpek goes down, he gets to come back to life. And he comes back to life with half of his wounds, which is kind of a bummer, but he's a Necron. He gets to reanimate. So that means that at the end of my opponent's turn, he's dead, but then he gets set back up. And then in my command phase, he heals D3 of his wounds back. He's unkillable. He is a beast. It's like, even if this squad gets wiped out, it doesn't get wiped out. No matter if my toys get wiped off the board, I get to play with my toys. It's so good. I love big, chunky squads that are gonna be hard for my opponent to deal with. And my Wraiths are going up, my Scorpek Destroyers are going up, my Locust Destroyers are going up, big blocks of really hard to kill stuff. And then my squishier Necron boys can be right behind, just taking shots at whenever they get a good opportunity to. And speaking of destroyers, Locust Destroyers. I have 3, and I remember talking with a guy on Facebook Marketplace because he was selling his Necron army, and he was selling a ton of Necron destroyers, and they're now called Locust destroyers. And I remember thinking, he was selling like 20, and I was like, maybe I could be the Locust guy. I could be the destroyer guy. He was charging what they cost because these guys have been like historically really, really good. And nowadays in 10th edition, they're still really, really good. They can be led by a Locust Lord for the +1. They have lethal hits on their guns, which are, I think, 3 shots at strength 6. Pretty good anti-infantry guns. But there is an enhancement that I could put on that Locust Lord that gives the squad stealth. If there was ever a unit that shouldn't have stealth, it is big flying centaur Necrons. But sure enough, they can be -1 to be hit. And that is -1 to be hit, 3 up save, 3 wounds apiece. Like, they're really nice and juicy and tanky and good luck wiping the squad. And they get to reanimate. So they get to come back to life when they die. Like, this squad is another big, juicy brick that is going to be really, really hard for my opponent to deal with. And while they're trying to deal with it, my regular Necron boys are backing me up with some pretty darn good shooting. I love this army so much. This army has been played with a ton. It's been repainted a ton. It doesn't need to be repainted anymore. I'm very happy with my white and orange color scheme. The only thing is the bases. The bases are orange and they look very good on my orange mat, but I came up with a smarter way of doing the bases. The way I did the bases previously is I rubbed them with some orange and yellow pigment powder, which gave them kind of a slightly desaturated orange appearance. But if I turn the orange pigment powder into a slurry and I put that on the bases, I end up with like a really disgusting, like ammonia yellow kind of a color. And I really like how this looks. So I think I might not even have to repaint the bases. I think if I just like soak them in water, I might be able to wash off enough of the pigments that it ends up looking like this, because I really like this crazy yellow color. I have this on a few of the units that I've painted over the years. Almost this entire army was painted years ago, but I do have a couple of new units like this Doomstalker, which, look at this thing. This is War of the Worlds. This thing is beautiful. I took this to not a spearhead tournament. What's the 40K spearhead? Combat Patrol. I took this sucker to a Combat Patrol. Necron Combat Patrol is terrible, but then it has this thing, which is like unkillable and unstoppable. So every game I would get wiped off the board except for this thing, and then it just gets to shoot. It gets to do whatever it wants, because it's way too much vehicle for a game like Combat Patrol. All of these new units have the new bases, so I would like to make all of the bases match. But other than that, there's kind of nothing I want and nothing I need. For the 2,000 point list that I want to run in Awakened Dynasty, there's just a couple of units. I want to finish painting my Scorpec Destroyer Lord, and then I need another Plasmancer, which is a Cryptek. I remember in 6th edition, you could build a bear Cryptex. There was even like a 2-page spread about all of the different like spells and magic abilities that you could give to your Cryptex. Now they're just broken down unit by unit. So there's the Technomancer, who has the Canoptek Cloak, which is this little spider guy that he's riding on top of or being carried by. He attaches to the Wraiths, and he makes the Wraiths very, very good. But the Plasmancer attaches to the Immortals. I need one more Plasmancer. I would like to have a Doomsday Arc. I actually essentially have 2 Doomsday Arcs, and I'll probably be using these as a proxy for quite a while, but Ghost Arcs and Doomsday Arcs are the exact same thing. Let me show you guys what a Doomsday Arc looks like. That's a Doomsday Arc. It's just the same kit, but it's upside down. And it has a gigantic gun. It actually has this gun on it. But I would like to have one of those because it's just a really incredibly powerful anti-tank punch. The only other thing I would like to have for this army is 3 more Necron Destroyers and 3 Necron Heavy Destroyers, which Heavy Destroyer used to just be a forge or a fine cast gun that you bought for this kit. I think I might have a couple of those kicking around, but the new kit is really, really nice looking. And so I would like to get the new kit to have some Heavy Destroyers, and I would like to buy one of the new kits to build a unit that Games Workshop doesn't currently sell, the Necron Scorpec Destroyer Lord. And by Scorpec, I mean Locust, the Locust Destroyer Lord. I think they might still sell the fine cast upgrade bit, but it's really, really bad. So I want to take a Scorpec Heavy Destroyer, a Locust Heavy Destroyer. I'm gonna start saying Ophidian soon. I've got all my destroyers mixed up. a Locust Lord. I'm going to use the Heavy Destroyer body, and then I'm going to try to kit bash something to make the body look appropriately Destroyer Lordy. The Destroyers are a really fun thing in the Necrons. They're kind of the precursor. Necrons, even though they're immortal, they do kind of have a lifespan, and that is like 65 million years as a Necron warrior. And then when they start to go mad, they turn into a Destroyer where all they can do is kill. And then once they're just completely gone, they become a Flayed One. And the Flayed Ones, the Flayed Ones are really, really good too. They have Infiltrate and they have Reanimation Protocols. I had a squad. I actually move blocked Sean by putting them 9 inches away from my enemy's deployment zone. And then so Sean had to charge into them. He didn't quite make it. I think they tied up a squad of 8 bound. He killed them. He somehow left one alive. And so that one that was alive reanimated, and it reanimated 3 guys. And so 3 guys came back to life, and he ended up running away from them because he didn't care about killing the Flayed Ones. And so he just kept his 8 bound moving. But then I had a squad of 4 Flayed Ones in his backfield, and they just walked onto his home field objective and then wiped the squad of guardsmen that was holding his home field objective. Oh, it was absolutely beautiful. Total luck. That is not what should mathematically happen, but it felt really, really good. The Necrons, I've played a lot of different armies in 40K, both played and played against. A lot of armies feel a little finicky and a little tricky. Necron datasheets and Necron abilities are just kind of generous. They're a very robust army that is kind of going to do what it says on the tin. A lot of Space Marine units and like Sisters of Battle units, a little bit orcs. Like you have to really kind of tech into the different things that you want your models to do. Necrons, they can kind of just do it. They're just a really good, really strong army that I need to do like this much work to get playable. Oh, at my local store, they're gonna start doing the Rogue Trader tournament soon. I've been thinking about what I'm gonna play because last year I did Black Templar, and now I've played like 50 games of Black Templar. I'm good at them now. I should play Black Templar in the tournament, but I want to do something different. And I was thinking maybe my Dark Eldar, but I might bring my Necrons back. I used to play this army at my local Warhammer store in high school. I remember sitting at like my mom's kitchen table with some newspaper down so I didn't get paint on her kitchen table, painting these little Necrons and watching YouTube tutorials of how do you paint Warhammer. This army has come a long way. I actually have not the original paint job of some of these models, but I think when I officially could paint okay, I painted this army with white armor, a Nuln Oil wash, and blue accents. And I bought an airbrush specifically for the Necrons so that I could paint these guys. And I have just a few models left over from their time as blue. I don't suggest a color scheme that is white and then light blue as the accent because it doesn't make for an overall super interesting color scheme. I think white with orange highlights is much punchier, but this army is a really fun piece of my wargaming history, and I am really excited to play it some more. I'll probably play it tonight in Tabletop Simulator. My Necrons are back and badder than ever, and you know what else is badder than ever? EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch, like the Nick and J dice. The J dice are actually inspired by this Necron army. They're orange, and they've got a little robo skull, and because my guys are orange, and they have little robo skulls. On our website, you'll find the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members can get a credit they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of February, we made the Grim Battlefield Basing Bits. The perfect thing for your grimdark miniatures to stand on. War-torn scenery isn't as easy to pull off as texture paste in a grass tuft, but with these bits, it's easy to give your minis the grimdark treatment. With a selection of sandbags and barbed wire barriers, ruined walls, smashed stained glass, unexploded ordnances, and more. All sized perfectly to complement any size of miniature, from giving an upgrade to your small rank and file troopers, all the way up to big chunks of debris to fill up monster and vehicle bases. You can build it all. All these bits can be found on EonsOfBattle.com, both digitally as STLs and for the first time as packs of physical printed bits. My Necron army brings me so much joy. It is a 2015 Necron army. I have a smattering of the newer units, but honestly, like, New Monolith, Silent King, Void Dragon, it doesn't feel Necrons to me. like some of the old school classic Necrons where their little feetsies hang off of the 25mm bases that they used to be on. The Necron Immortals, which is one of the most genius kits Games Workshop ever designed. That was like one of the first kits that was ever, you got 2 different units in one box of 5 dudes. Like Necrons are one of the most important things in Warhammer 40,000. They are not the game's robot faction. The Tyrannid are Games Workshop's robot faction, where you have different bioforms that each do a very specific thing for war. The Necrons are the alien faction. If you guys haven't, like, go onto one of the 40K lore wikis and look up the War in Heaven. It is one of the coolest pieces of literature in all of Warhammer 40,000's illustrious history. It is fantastic. I'll probably go reread it right now. Thanks for watching.